Hello and welcome to the next part of this tutorial. So we're going to just do some very kind of crude and simple texture painting in this part of the video. Although I suppose texture painting might be a bit misleading. We're just going to color in some of this just using some of the kind of basic tools. So if I'm just going to select everything. Select this guy here, the excuse me, the skin, and I hit assign. So now if we go over to our modeling tab and we go here to, so we're just all one color. So let's just kind of crudely color stuff in for now. And there's a really kind of handy tool that we can use in Blender to do that. So I have kind of a number of materials already sort of made just from playing around with this model. So I'm going to add in excuse me, one or two kind of layers, material layers. I'm going to add in this leather 2. I'm going to add in metal 1. And then we have a cloth as well, which is sort of a grey colour. Now these are just very simple, there's no textures or anything, and they're just base colors. So if we have a quick look at, so there's quite a few pieces here that are meant to be sort of brown leather. So if I hover the mouse over this, and this has to be in face select mode, and I press L, I can get the pieces that are it will select what's in between the seams, as opposed to L normally is linked. So these are linked, but linked within the seam. So if I have a list of things here that I want to apply this leather material to, then this is quite a handy way to do it. And be careful with this one. There we go. And assign. And then I'm not sure if I can. Yeah. So I might need to go in and add another seam here. So let's do that. Let's fix that now. Let's go into wireframe mode, and we want to select. Oops. That's pretty much what we wanted to select, actually. And so let's just go back to, so we want all of this selected as well. So okay, I'm going to go to so I don't need that one, or that one, or that one. Oops. Excuse me. And I don't need that one. I don't need that one, I don't think. Oops. Okay, so Control E, mark seam. We'll go back to textured mode and see if we can select it with face select on. Hit L here and assign. Perfect. Well, not perfect, but better. And assign, assign, and L, and assign. Okay, so they're the major sort of leather items apart from this arm greave down here. And assign. So so that saved us a lot of work putting that on there, not having to individually, you know, select faces, etc. So this area here, I'm going to add my kind of leather cloth to that, and do the same here to that, and that area there. So that's meant to be one sort of undergarment that we're on top of. Now, so I'm going to select, deselect, and then hit L for these. Now we've got leather 1 and leather 2, so that's not a particularly nice material. It's very shiny. Excuse me. Let's go over to the specularity there, and maybe we won't worry about it too much. And then that one. Okay. So in a relatively short time, so we're what, 6 minutes in, we have most of the character in a very crude way sort of colored in. Now if we go back into edit mode here and press L, there's sort of an indentation here as if to suggest that this sleeve was a different material. So let's run with that and try and separate this out. So I might go into wireframe here so we can see what we're doing. Yeah, that is not what I wanted. Nor was that. Let's go back to solid mode and see where we're selecting. So we want to be inside this area here, so we can actually join up with that seam, which we've done there. So Control E, mark seam, and then we just have to make sure that we have joined up here. Now we're going to have to unwrap this again because we've created these new seams. And there. Actually, not. That will go to there. Control E, mark seam. Okay, so so we should be able to select. Nope. We're in. So face select first, and then L. So that area there, and we'll give this. We'll call it's called metal 1. We'll assign that there, but we'll take our. Let's make it. There we go. And now we can see that the seam is. We should have been selecting that line there, maybe, instead. So let's do that. So let's select this seam and unseam it. Okay, so Control E and clear seam, and it's that we want to do. Control E and mark seam, and then get rid of that one. So clear seam, and we can join these up here. Control E, mark seam. Okay, so a small difference, but it might make a big difference to our how we look. Yeah, that looks much better. Okay, now these colors are not necessarily complementary on the color wheel, but it's just as a kind of placeholder. Now, in terms of how we work with these, when we go into our UV image editing here and we tab in, we can create a new image here. So we can go new and we'll make this say 2048 by 2048. And we'll make it white. Okay, so here's my white image. And I'm going to go to object mode and I'm going to go to render, and we're in cycles. We'll have a look and see, is it possible to bake oh yeah, so it says no active material found. So let's go into, so this is called untitled, so we'll call this so base diffuse, so just base kind of color. And we'll go into our shading mode and let's pick, we're on metal, so that's the one that's selected at the moment. So we'll go back to skin, and in this one we will add in an image texture, and we'll add in our base diffuse, but we're not going to connect it. So that's in here, but it's not connected. Okay, and I'm going to do the same, so you can copy and paste these nodes. So I'm going to go Control C, I'm going to go into leather here and go Control V. Same with this one here, leather 2, and metal 1, and cloth 1. Now the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to ask Blender to bake all of these colors into my UV map. So if I go into edit mode here and go to my UV editor, so I've got all of this information here, and I want all of these individual colors to be mapped on to the image, this image here, base diffuse. And basically, once in order for Blender to know it's to do all of these, it needs to have that this blank image attached to all of the materials. If it's only attached to one material, which is actually how I ended up with the hands there, it'll only do one of them. Okay, so with all of that in place, we can go down here to bake, and it's diffuse that we're looking for, so we're just looking for the color. We're not looking for any of the other maps that we can get. Clear image, we'll get rid of this black stuff that's here, and then we can just hit bake. And depending on the speed of your computer, this will take different amounts of time. It won't show you anything normally here until it's completed. And what we should see is this color information baked into this image. Now we're only in textured mode, so we have our two lights here, so hang on, we'll see. So let's see what this guy looks like in rendered mode. So we can see that it's baked black, and that's because it cannot see the character. So let's just take our point light here and go in and have a look at its size, its bounce, and its strength. So let's, if we actually let's just turn this into a sun here. Okay, and we'll rotate that way, and then this other point light here, we'll turn that into a sun, and we'll rotate that way, and we can maybe bring this down to 1, and the other one. Okay, so now with our character selected, we can go into edit mode here. So we couldn't see anything, which is why it has baked out black. So and what's interesting is our two lights are kind of pointing downwards. It will include kind of light information in the bake. And we can turn that off if we just wanted color, pure color, and no shading, which is maybe what you would want if we're going to take this character into Unity. So maybe we don't want shadows and dark and bright areas baked in. Maybe we want the lighting in Unity to do that. But just for so we could turn these off here if we wanted. But we'll hit bake here and we'll see what we get. So again, we'll have to wait for it to go through its process, and then see what comes out the other side. Hopefully what we'll get then is an image with all the different color components mapped over their UVs, and then that image we can then take into Photoshop or GIMP or something like that, and then add additional information if we wanted, like sort of decals, or we could stay here in Blender and do additional texture painting. So I'm just going to go into object mode, and then we can see here, so the back of the hand and the arm here are well illuminated, but the rest of it's all still very, very dark. So we'll turn off our lighting and we'll bake again, and see this time what result we get without having to work out the impact of the light onto the different islands. And you can see this is not as pretty. Now I'm going to turn down this margin here. Excuse me. This is how much it'll kind of go over the edge of each island, because I think as it's currently set up there, some of them will overlap, because some of the islands and the UV map are quite close. Okay, so that's a bit better. So whether you want to bake in shadows or not is completely up to you, but that process gives us our UV map, which is a kind of our starting point then for where we're going to take the character next and kind of color it in.